cold hit me first. Not the kind that makes you shiver for a moment, but a deep, biting cold that cuts straight through my jacket and into my bones. The kind of cold that felt alive, mean, and endless. The kind you only find in the Adirondacks in late October. My breath came out in white clouds that lingered in the dark, empty air before fading into the shadows of the early morning. I pulled my collar tight and walked toward the rail yard gates, the gravel crunching under my boots already crusted with frost. Frostburg Station looked exactly as it always had, like a place forgotten by time. The flickering yellow lights cast sickly circles over the cracked platforms. The metal buildings squatted low and silent beside the tracks, and the distant mountains stood like gray ghosts, their peaks hidden by mist. I had only been gone 3 months, but standing there now, it felt like I had never really left. My hand slipped into my jacket pocket and brushed against the folded paper. My medical release form, signed by Dr. Kelso just 2 days ago. "You're cleared for duty, Mr. Vance," she'd said, peering over her glasses with that practiced mix of concern and control all therapists seem to have. "But remember what we discussed. Recognize your triggers, use your breathing techniques, and if you feel another episode coming on..." I'd nodded before she could finish, pretending everything was fine. I took the papers, booked a ticket north, and told myself I was ready. What I didn't tell her was that the panic attacks never really stopped. I just learned how to hide them better, to ride them out in empty bathrooms or quiet corners where no one could see my hands tremble or my vision close in like a tunnel. The guard shack was empty, which wasn't strange for the early shift. I swiped my ID, half expecting it to be deactivated, but the gate buzzed open with a metallic groan. The yard beyond stretched wide, endless tracks lined with freight cars, engines idling with a deep, steady rumble, and the sound of distant clanging echoing from the repair sheds. I headed for the dispatch office, my breath slow and measured, trying to keep the anxiety from crawling up my throat. I'd taken my meds, done my breathing exercises. I could handle this. I had to. Sitting in my apartment, watching my money disappear while my thoughts turned against me. That wasn't living. "Vance!" The voice hit from behind, rough and sharp like gravel. I turned and saw Lou Murphy standing beside one of the locomotives, cigarette dangling from his lips under a no-smoking sign. He looked older than I remembered, deeper lines on his face, beard almost completely gray. But his eyes hadn't changed, still sharp, still unblinking. "Lou," I said, trying to smile. "Good to see you." He didn't return it, just looked me up and down like a mechanic checking a car that's already broken down once before. "Heard you were coming back." Wasn't sure it was true. "Medical cleared me," I said, tapping my pocket. "That right?" he said flatly, taking a drag from his cigarette. The orange glow briefly lit his face. "How you feeling?" "Good. Better," I lied easily. He stared for another long second, then jerked his chin toward the engine. "Come on, need to talk before your shift." I followed him up the metal stairs into the cab. The inside was exactly how I remembered. Worn leather seats, switches that belonged in a museum, and that thick smell of grease, diesel, and burnt coffee. Lou dropped into the engineer's seat with a grunt and motioned for me to sit across from him. The heater was running, blasting warmth into the small space. My fingers stung as the blood returned. "You asked about Greg," Lou said suddenly. "In your email. Said you heard he transferred south." "Yeah," I said. "Arlene told me he took a position in Albany." "Arlene lied," Lou said flatly. "Greg didn't transfer anywhere. He disappeared 6 weeks ago." The words hit harder than the cold. "What do you mean disappeared?" "I mean he walked into the woods behind the north yard at 3 in the morning and never came back." Lou stubbed out his cigarette in an old coffee can full of ashes. Security footage caught him leaving his quarters. No coat, no bag. Just walked past the guard shack and straight into the trees. They followed his footprints for 50 yards, then nothing. Like he just stopped existing. My mouth went dry. Greg Silva had been my partner for 2 years. Calm, steady Greg, who'd saved my life the day my first panic attack hit mid-run. He'd stayed with me when I thought my heart was going to explode, talked me through it until the medics arrived. Why would he do that? I managed. Don't know, Lou said. Don't know if it was his choice. He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a folded, yellowed piece of paper. But I know it's connected to these. I took it and unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. Across the top were the words, "The rules," followed by 7 numbered lines. Count passengers against the manifest at every stop. Never open doors for anyone not on the manifest. If the train stops for more than 15 minutes, leave. Never stop during snowstorms. If a passenger speaks in riddles or mentions impossible places, keep them talking but don't touch them. Anyone claiming a Whitehall destination is lying. The rider can only board stationary trains. I read them twice. My pulse thudded. What is this? Survival guide, Lou said quietly. He tapped the paper but didn't look at it. Every conductor who lasts long enough on the mountain routes knows these. They're not written down anywhere. Not in manuals, not in training, but we all know them. This doesn't make sense, I said. These aren't real rules. Rule 3 alone would violate half a dozen safety protocols. And what the hell is the rider? Lou's expression didn't change. Greg thought it was a joke, too. First time he lit another cigarette, the lighter's flame cutting harsh shadows across his face. Then he ran the Crestview route during a February blizzard. When he came back, he didn't talk for 3 days, just sat in his quarters staring at his copy of the rules. Week later, he tore them up. 2 weeks after that, he walked into the woods. The heater hummed, the silence thick between us. Outside, the yard was waking up. Voices, footsteps, clanging metal. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you're taking the Crestview run today. Lou handed me a sheet of paper. 6 a.m. departure, 4 stops. You'll be back by 3. Easy route, light load, good weather. I stared at the schedule, then at the paper of rules. And you think something's going to happen? I think you should be ready, he said, standing slowly. That's your copy now. Keep it close. Don't try to explain it. Just follow it. Every word he paused at the cab door, his hand gripping the frame hard enough to turn his knuckles white. Keep your radio on channel 7. Always. Even if it's just static. Especially if it's just static. And if you hear something that isn't me or dispatch, don't answer. Don't acknowledge it. He left before I could say anything. I sat there, the paper trembling slightly in my hands, the sound of the heater too loud. I read through the rules again, slower this time. Some of them sounded reasonable, like counting passengers or avoiding unlisted entries. But the rest never stopped during snowstorms. The rider, the Whitehall line. They sounded like something out of a ghost story told by tired old men after too many night shifts. I folded the list carefully and slipped it into my pocket beside my medical release. 3 months of therapy, and now I was back in the same place, being handed a set of rules that sounded more like a curse than safety advice. The radio crackled suddenly. Unit 12, this is dispatch. Conductor Vance, please confirm presence. I reached for the handset, then froze. Channel 7. Lou's voice echoed in my head. I checked the dial. It was set to channel 9, the standard line. Slowly, I turned it. Static filled the cabin, broken by what might have been a faint voice, or maybe just interference. Dispatch, this is Vance, I said, my voice steady despite the cold crawling up my spine. Present and ready for assignment. Copy that, Vance, came the reply. Welcome back. Manifest ready at the office. Departure in 30, I climbed down from the locomotive and into the dawn light. The sky was a dull gray now, the kind that never brightens. The dispatch office glowed faintly from its frosted windows. Inside, Arlene Hughes stood behind the counter, glasses low on her nose. Elias, she said, looking up. Good to have you back. Good to be back, I lied again. She slid a clipboard across the counter. Manifest for Crestview. 12 passengers. Easy run. Weather's clear. Her eyes lingered a bit too long. You look well. Thanks, I said, forcing a nod. She handed me the keys. Track 3. Lou's already checked the engine. I turned to leave, but she called after me. Elias, be careful out there. The words stuck to me like frost. Outside, the train waited. A diesel locomotive pulling 4 weathered passenger cars. Old, solid, the kind built to survive anything. I hoped that was true. I walked along the train, checking each door and window like I always did, the manifest tight in my gloved hand. The lights inside were on, glowing softly through the windows. I entered through the last car and moved forward, inspecting everything one by one. The air smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and old fabric. I tested the emergency exits, the intercom, and the heating. Everything worked fine. Familiar tasks that made me feel grounded. When I reached the front of the lead car, I grabbed my radio. Conductor to engineer. All cars checked and cleared. Lou's voice came through the static on Channel 7. Copy that. Passengers boarding in 10 minutes. I stood on the platform as people began arriving, their breaths white in the cold air, bundled in coats, holding steaming cups of coffee. I checked every ticket carefully. 1, 2, 3. The steady rhythm was calming. By the time the whistle blew, all 12 passengers had been verified. The train jolted forward, metal groaning and brakes hissing. I held the railing at the rear platform as we picked up speed. The station lights slipped past, the dispatch office glowing warm and yellow, the repair shed open, the guard shack now manned. Then the rail yard faded behind us, shrinking until it vanished into the gray dawn, swallowed by the dark forest of the Adirondacks. The mountains towered on both sides, thick with pine and bare trees, dusted with early snow. The tracks stretched behind us like a silver ribbon being eaten by the woods. The folded paper in my pocket, the rules, felt heavier than paper should. I pulled it out again, reading under the dull morning light. Somewhere in these same mountains, Greg Silva had walked into the trees and vanished. Others before him, too, men who had ripped up their copies of these rules or quit before they went mad. The steady rumble under my feet no longer felt comforting, more like a clock counting down. 4 stops, 9 hours, then back before dark. I folded the rules carefully and slid them into my pocket again, keeping my hand there, as if holding the paper might shield me from whatever waited ahead. The wilderness stretched forever, silent and ancient, and we were rolling straight into it. The train's rhythm was hypnotic, the wheels clacking, the cars swaying, the low hum of the diesel engine pulling us deeper between the mountains. I walked through the first passenger car with practiced calm, checking tickets and counting faces. An old woman in 3A knitting something blue. A man in a suit asleep under his newspaper. 2 college kids laughing quietly, earbuds in. I matched names to faces, faces to seats. Routine, predictable, safe. Outside, endless forest rolled by. Dark pine, bare birch, and rock ledges like broken bones. We passed a frozen stream, the ice white and lifeless. The land felt empty, almost too empty, like everything living had been swallowed whole by the trees. I glanced down at the manifest again as I stepped into the second car. 12 total passengers, 7 in the first car, 5 here. Easy math, a small comfort. The second car was quieter. A couple in the front seats whispered to each other. A woman with a baby sat further down, the child asleep in her arms. That made 3. Near the back, a young soldier sat alone in uniform, staring out the window. 4. I reached the end of the car, but that was it. Only 4 passengers. The list said there should be 5. My chest tightened. I took a slow breath, counting in my head. Probably a mistake, I told myself. Maybe someone changed seats. Maybe someone missed boarding. Normal explanations. Still, I went back through the car, checking again. The couple, the woman with the baby, the soldier, empty rows, until I reached 14B. Someone was sitting there now. I froze. I was sure, absolutely sure, that seat had been empty before. But now a man sat there perfectly still, hands folded, staring straight ahead. My pulse spiked. He must have been in the restroom, I told myself. That had to be it. Calmly, I stepped closer. Ticket, please. He turned toward me, and cold ran down my spine. His skin was pale, not just light skin, but drained of color, waxy like old candle wax. His smile was wide, too wide, showing too many perfect white teeth like tiles. But it was his eyes that stopped me. They were almost black, but when light hit them, they glowed faintly amber, like an animal's eyes caught in headlights. Of course, he said, his voice soft and strange, as if he'd practiced speaking by copying recordings. He reached into his coat pocket, the movement too smooth, too fluid, and handed me a ticket. I took it without touching him. The ticket was normal, properly stamped. Thomas Whitmore, seat 14B. Everything matched. Destination? I asked, trying to sound calm. His smile widened slightly. Whitehall. The word hit like ice water. Rule 6. Anyone claiming Whitehall is lying. The Whitehall line was abandoned. I looked down. His ticket clearly said Crest View, not Whitehall. Your ticket says Crest View, I said carefully. Does it? He replied, tilting his head like a bird. How strange. I've been riding trains since before the snow learned to fall. You'd think I'd remember my own destination. His words made no sense. Poetic, eerie, wrong. Rule 5 flashed in my head. If a passenger speaks in riddles or mentions impossible places, don't touch them. Just talk. I stepped back slightly. Crestview is the next stop, I said evenly. We'll be there this afternoon. He stared at me, unblinking. Time is curious on these routes, he said. It bends. It loops. Sometimes the same journey happens again and again, and we never remember why we're still riding. He gestured to the seat beside him. Would you like to sit? You look tired. Maybe anxious, Rule 5 again. Don't engage. I have duties to attend to, I said quickly. If you need anything, there's a call button above your seat. Oh, I won't need anything, he murmured. Everything I need is right here. This train, this route, this stretch of track. It's all very familiar. His smile didn't fade. I nodded slightly and turned away, moving toward the front of the car. I could feel his eyes on me, that faint amber glint following me as I walked. My hands trembled as I pulled out the folded paper from my pocket and read the rules again. Rule 5, Rule 6. He'd triggered both. Lou had told me not to question the rules. Just follow them. But my mind kept spinning. Thomas Whitmore, or whoever he was, had just marked himself as something wrong, something that shouldn't be here. And now I had to ride the rest of the journey knowing he was sitting just a few cars behind me, waiting, watching. I finished counting the rest of the train cars. 12 passengers total. Everyone matched the manifest, yet that strange 13th presence in seat 14B sat like a heavy weight pressing at the back of my mind. The radio on my belt crackled suddenly. Lou's voice broke through the static on Channel 7. Coming up on Millbrook Pass. How's it looking back there? I raised the radio to my lips. All passengers accounted for. No issues. The lie felt like the only choice. What was I supposed to say? One passenger speaks in riddles? Lou's voice came back. Copy that. Weather ahead looks clear. Should be smooth sailing to... His voice cut out. I frowned. Lou? Engineer, please respond, Static hissed. Then his voice returned, shaky now, the calm gone. Elias, I'm reading weather conditions that don't make sense. There's a storm system forming fast from the northwest. I turned toward the nearest window. The sky, once dull gray but clear, now churned with thick, dark clouds. They rolled like smoke from a massive fire. Their edges tinted that sickly yellow-green that always warned of violent storms. As I watched, they spread faster than any natural front, swallowing daylight whole. How fast? I asked. Too fast, Lou answered. I've never seen anything like it. slowing down as a precaution. Keep passengers calm if they start asking questions. The first snowflakes hit the windows moments later. Not soft flakes, but hard, sharp pellets that slapped against the glass like thrown sand. Within seconds, the windows turned white, covered in frost. The temperature inside dropped sharply, the heating system fighting to keep up. I moved through the cars, watching faces. The old woman had stopped knitting, her eyes wide as she stared at the storm. The businessman frowned at his phone, checking for weather updates. The college kids had gone quiet, their laughter gone. In the second car, Thomas sat exactly as before, hands folded neatly, that strange smile still frozen in place. Only now he wasn't watching the windows. He was staring at the ceiling. The storm outside grew worse by the minute. The world beyond the glass vanished completely, turned into a swirling white void. The train slowed even more, its steady rhythm breaking into hesitant jerks. The radio buzzed again. Elias, visibility is 0. I have to initiate an emergency stop. No choice. My stomach dropped. Rule 4. Never stop during snowstorms. How long until it clears, I asked, though I already knew it didn't matter. Unknown. This came out of nowhere. Could be minutes. Could be longer. The brakes screamed as the train began to slow. The sound of metal grinding filled the air as passengers braced themselves, grabbing seats and armrests. The baby in 6A started crying, a sharp, high-pitched wail that rose above the storm. Then the motion stopped. The train sat still, completely still, wrapped in white chaos. The silence that followed was almost deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I lifted my sleeve and checked my watch. Rule 3, if the train stops for more than 15 minutes, leave. I had exactly 15 minutes to avoid whatever that rule was meant to prevent. I grabbed my radio. Lou, we need to get moving again. Static. I adjusted the dial, made sure it was still on channel 7. Lou, come in. Nothing. Only harsh static that occasionally twisted into sounds that might have been words, or something trying to sound like words. The passengers were restless now. The businessman stood up, clutching his phone. Is there a problem? How long are we stopped? I forced calm into my voice. Just a small delay. The engineer's checking the tracks. We'll be moving again shortly. Shortly, such an empty word. I checked my watch again. 2 minutes gone. 13 left. I walked the aisles, giving small reassurances I didn't believe, pretending I wasn't freezing as cold air seeped through every seam and joint in the car. My breath came out in white clouds. When I reached the second car, Thomas hadn't moved an inch. Same posture, same eerie stillness. But his head was tilted back even farther now, eyes locked on the ceiling. I followed his gaze but saw nothing. My stomach twisted. I checked my watch again. 8 minutes, then 7. The baby's cries had turned into full screams now, sharp and endless. The mother rocked her child, whispering softly, but the baby's panic felt deeper, like it sensed something all of us couldn't. 10 minutes gone. 5 left. The wind outside hit the train like a living thing, howling and battering the cars. The lights flickered once, twice, then held steady. Through the frost-covered windows, nothing but blank white. It felt like we'd vanished from the world completely. 12 minutes, 3 remaining. I tried the radio again, flipping channels in desperation. Channel 9, static. Channel 6, static. I switched back to 7. That's when I heard it. Beneath the noise, something rhythmic. A deep, slow sound, like breathing or machinery turning. 13 minutes, 2 left. Then Thomas finally moved. His head lowered from that impossible angle, and his dark, glowing eyes met mine across the car. His smile stretched wider, sharp with excitement. Slowly, he raised one pale hand and pointed up. I froze. A heavy thump sounded on the roof. Then another. Steady, deliberate, moving from the front of the car toward the back. Not the wind, not debris. Footsteps. My body locked up as the noise passed directly above me. each impact making the ceiling flex slightly. The passengers heard it too. The businessman looked up, wide-eyed. The soldier stood, tense and ready, his hand twitching toward a weapon that wasn't there. The sound stopped directly above Thomas's seat. He tilted his head up, smiling too wide. "My friend is punctual," he said. The thumping resumed, moving slowly toward the front again. I couldn't move. Fear pinned me in place. The sound was too heavy, too real. The businessman finally broke the silence. "Conductor," he said, voice shaking. "What the hell is on the roof?" I forced a steady tone. "Probably debris. The wind can pick up loose equipment." "That's not debris," the soldier cut in, his voice flat and certain. "Those are footsteps." The mother clutched her baby tighter. "We need to leave. Please, we need to get off this train," Rule 3 echoed in my mind. "If the train stops for more than 15 minutes, leave." But go where? Into that storm? It made no sense. And yet I saw Lou's face in my mind, the pale fear when he said, "Don't stop." I tried the radio again, my hands shaking. "Lou, this is Elias. We need to move now." The static that came back wasn't normal. It wasn't empty. There were layers, deep, grinding sounds like huge gears turning, mixed with something else, something like slow, wet breathing. I pulled the radio away, my stomach twisting. Thomas stood. The way he moved wasn't right. His limbs too long, too fluid, like his body didn't have bones. He stretched his arms and they seemed to extend just a little too far. His grin grew impossibly wider. 14 minutes and 30 seconds, he said clearly. "You're cutting it rather close, Conductor Vance." My blood ran cold. I hadn't told him my name. "Sit down," I ordered, trying to sound firm. "Everyone needs to stay seated." He tilted his head. "Oh, sitting won't help. You see, the threshold has rules. 15 minutes is when the door opens. That's when what's outside can come inside. That's when the rider can board Rule 7. The rider can only board stationary trains." "There's nothing outside," I said quickly. But before the words even left my mouth, the thumping above started again, moving toward the rear of the car. Thomas began walking too. That same wrong liquid motion. The passengers shrank back as he passed. I stepped forward to block him. "Sir, stay in your seat." He stopped inches from me. His eyes were wrong, unfocused but glowing faintly from within, like a fire buried deep. He smelled like ozone and rust. "The emergency locks won't hold," he said calmly. "They never do. Not when he wants in." I looked down at my watch. 14 minutes, 45 seconds. "Step back," I said, voice shaking. His grin split even wider. "You should have left while you could." Greg knew that. Lou knew that. But knowing isn't the same as doing, is it? He brushed past me, his shoulder grazing mine, and I felt it. Not warmth, not cold exactly, but something empty that crawled into my bones. He reached the rear door, where the heavy emergency lock was engaged. He looked at it for a moment, then pressed his hand against the metal. The lock snapped clean in half with a sharp crack. The door swung open, and the storm exploded inside. Wind slammed into me, driving icy snow that stung my eyes and skin. The temperature dropped instantly. I staggered forward, holding onto the doorframe. Thomas stepped out onto the rear platform. "No!" I shouted, lunging after him. And that's when I saw it. The rider stood beside the tracks, about 10 feet away, perfectly still. Even through the blizzard, I could see its size. At least 8 feet tall, maybe more. Its body was a twisted nightmare of metal and flesh. Train parts fused with something human. Plates of rusted steel rippled like muscle. Cables pulsed beneath torn, blackened skin. Its torso was part boiler, part rib cage, its surface dotted with corroded rivets like diseased sores. Its arms were too long, ending in claws that looked half mechanical, half flesh. The legs were made of pistons and burnt skin, ending in hooves that sank into the snow but left no footprints. But its head was worse than anything I'd imagined. It was shaped like a human skull stretched too far, the jaw unhinged like a snake's. Where eyes should have been, Two blazing train headlights burned bright, cutting through the storm with unnatural light. Steam hissed from its neck with every movement, and the sound, that grinding, heavy sound of turning metal, filled the air as it stared straight at me. Thomas walked slowly down the steps and across the snow, moving calmly like the storm around him didn't matter. He turned back to me with that same strange smile on his pale face and raised one hand in a friendly wave. "Until next time, conductor," he called, his voice somehow clear through the roaring wind. The rider stepped toward the train, its movements both human and machine at once. Metal pistons pumping, skin rippling, each step pounding like a hammer against steel. My watch beeped. 15 minutes. The train's engine roared to life, jerking forward so suddenly it threw me off balance. I grabbed the door handle with frozen fingers, fighting to pull it shut. The wind howled, dragging it open, but I braced my foot and pulled with all my strength. Through the narrowing crack, I saw the rider taking another step, then another. Faster now, those headlight eyes glowing brighter. Thomas stood near the tracks, smiling, waving, that unsettling grin never leaving his face. The door slammed shut. I twisted the broken lock, jammed it into place, then shoved an emergency brake lever through the handle to hold it. I knew it wouldn't last against whatever that thing was, but the train was moving, fast, trying to outrun the storm itself. I pressed my face to the window, looking back into the snow. The rider had stopped, watching us leave, those glowing eyes following the train until the blizzard swallowed everything. Thomas was gone, like he'd never existed at all. Only the storm remained, endless and white. My legs gave out. I slid down to the floor, shaking, my back against the door. The passengers were silent, terror frozen on their faces. Even the baby had stopped crying, staring at me with wide, old-looking eyes that seemed to understand far too much. The soldier finally broke the silence. "What the hell was that?" he muttered. I had no answer. My hands trembled as I pulled the folded paper from my pocket. The rules, and read Rule 7 again. The rider can only board stationary trains. We had stopped for exactly 15 minutes. That was all it took. The train kept gaining speed. Outside, the blizzard began to fade, the heavy snow breaking apart into thin flakes as if its job was done. I forced myself to stand, muscles weak, needing to focus, to act like a conductor again. I had to check the passengers, count them, keep order. I walked through the car, avoiding their eyes, their whispered questions. When I reached seat 14B, I stopped. Thomas was gone, but something sat where he'd been. A small yellowed ticket stub. I picked it up carefully. The print was faded but readable. Northern Adirondack Railway. Departure, Frostburg. Destination, Whitehall. Date, January 14th, 1952. 73 years ago, to the day. I slipped it into my pocket with the rules and kept counting, my mind numb. No one spoke. No one looked at me. They just stared out the windows, watching gray skies and dark trees pass by, pretending nothing had happened. When Crestview Station appeared ahead, a wave of relief hit me so hard it hurt. Civilization. Witnesses. Proof the world was still real. The train hissed to a stop. I stood by the exit, forcing a smile, helping passengers off one by one. The old woman with her knitting, the businessman pale and trembling, the college student silent, the young couple, the mother with her baby, the soldier. He paused, looked at me, eyes heavy with something like pity. 11 passengers. I checked my manifest.